You are now listening to the Do It Movement podcast, where we share our experiences in real estate investing and encourage you to take action. You don't want to miss what we have in store today, so let's welcome our host, Martine Richardson, and our co-host, Lord Eubanks.
What's up today, Do It Movement listeners? This is your host, Martine Richardson, your buy and hold coach. Usually I am joined with my co-host today, but we had a conflict, so I'm here to come and give you all the juicy deets of how to optimize your rental cash flow. One of the biggest things that I hear right now is you investing in rental properties right now. Interest rates are high. It doesn't seem like it makes sense to invest in rental properties. What I found is that if you know how to work your numbers, you will make your numbers work for whatever types of deals you like to do. So particularly with rental property investing, right now, yes, interest rates are a little bit higher than we are accustomed to. People that have been in real estate for 50 years, 40 years, for a really long time, they're like, this little bit of increase is nothing. I've seen way higher interest rates than this. So how do you buy? How do you optimize your rental property cash flow? So let's talk about that. Now, I really want to talk about cash flow, but I know that there is a big, lingering elephant in the room in terms of how are you still buying rental properties in the current environment? So let me just touch on that a little bit. When you are buying rental properties, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that it's cash flowing appropriately, and you want to make sure that the rent can sustain the property. What do I mean when I say that? You want to make sure that the rent is cash flowing, but you also want to make sure that it can cover all the expenses, typically the taxes, insurance, and the mortgage on that property. So what you do when you're buying these properties is that you have to back in to your numbers to make sure that you're buying at a good price. I don't know about you, but I like to buy properties where I have to fix them up, put in a little sweat equity, and that pays me in the long run. So when you're doing that, you just have to factor that into your numbers and make sure that you're buying at a number that makes sense for you to still make money in this interest rate environment. So I have to touch on that briefly. This is not what this episode is about, but I have to touch on that briefly because a lot of people are saying, well, how are you finding the deals? The best thing that I can tell you is you have to be a better negotiator in times like this to make sure that those deals are working for you to make it a rental property. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about how you can optimize your cash flow with rental properties. One thing that I like is I like to have rental properties that not only cash flow but appreciate. So I tend to pick properties in areas that are going to either rapidly appreciate or appreciate some at least, because I want to make sure that I'm not only getting cash flow, but I'm building wealth while the tenant's paying down the mortgage. So the best way to optimize your rental income is to be proactive. I know that sounds really simple, but what I'm really saying is prepare your place so that you won't have a lot of issues down the road. Because yes, you could probably rehab a property, save a little bit of money on the front end, but then that's going to cause you a lot of headaches during the rental, during the back end of you having this rental property. So when you are a rental property investor, you have to think long term. You can't just think in today's terms like, oh, this is going to be good for today or tomorrow or the next month. You want this property to be good for a long time. So a lot of the times you may hear people say, well, I'm doing a rental, so I can do a lighter rehab than I would do if this was a flip. I don't agree with this philosophy. The reason I don't agree with this philosophy is, why would I make a product that is subpar because a tenant is moving in other than a buyer buying the property? If you're smart, you would want to make this place look really nice and put a really good person in there that's going to take care of it, because it's going to affect you more if it's not nice. When I hear about tenants and toilets and all of this stuff that people say this is why they hate being a rental property investor, that tells me that you didn't, one, properly vet the people that you're putting in these properties, or two, you aren't being proactive in terms of your rehab of these properties, trying to ensure that you're not going to have a lot of maintenance problems in the future. So, the number one way to optimize your cash flow with rental property investing is to be proactive. What do you mean, Martine, when you say be proactive? I'm glad you asked that question. When I say be proactive, what I'm telling you is that you need to fix your places so that they will not have any maintenance concerns within the first 5 years. What does that mean? That means if you have a property and the water heater looks like it's about to go, the water's still getting hot, but the water heater looks like it's about to go, switch the water heater, put a new one in there. If it looks like your HVAC system is on its last leg, it might be a good idea to replace the HVAC system so you're not getting a call in the middle of the winter saying my heat broke and I need someone to hurry up and come and fix this problem. The key is, and you can't 100% make it that you aren't 100% make it that you won't have any maintenance concerns. Like, I mean, some things are just above your control. I don't know if this has personally happened to me, but I've seen people that they've bought things and then a week or two it broke and they just bought it. They put a new one in there and it broke. So I wouldn't say that this is 100% like surety, but I will tell you that more times often than not, you will find that you will have fewer maintenance concerns, fewer people you have to pay to go out there and fix stuff, and taken away from your cash flow. You want to make sure that all that cash flow is that's coming in, that's cash flow that you can use and you don't have to put that back into the property. So how do you do that? You minimize your risk. What's the best way to minimize your risk? Give people a quality product. Give them a product that's not going to break down. Give them something that they're going to be proud of living in because they're going to be making memories there. This is their home. You want to make sure that you can minimize the amount of times you're having to put money out of your pocket to fix maintenance concerns because you were proactive in terms of making sure that your place was up to par. So the first one is to be proactive. What's another way that you can be proactive? Another way you can be proactive is really vetting great people to put into your properties. What does that mean? What I'm telling you is this. When I became a landlord, I will be honest and admit that I was terrible at it. I was really bad. If you would have called me, I was a motivated seller. You probably could have got a smoking hot deal on the properties that I had at that time. But what wasn't I doing? Well, one, I wasn't fixing the place nice enough to make it so that nothing would break within the first 5 years. So that's the first thing. We've already talked about that. So I was getting a lot of maintenance calls and it was getting on my nerves. And I'm like, why did I get into this? I thought this was passive. I just keep getting a lot of reactive things that need to be done because I was not proactive. So that was the first thing. And then two, I was terrible at picking the right people to move into these properties. Essentially, my philosophy used to be if your money was green, you could move into my place. And that was not a good philosophy. So what is a good philosophy to make sure that you get someone in these properties that are going to take care of? If you guys listen to me often, you know that my philosophy for tenants is you want someone that's going to take care of the place, they're going to pay you on time, and they're going to bother you minimally with maintenance requests. So the way to get bothered minimally with maintenance requests is to prepare a place that is nice enough that nothing is going to break so you don't have to be bothered with maintenance concerns. Now, another factor of that is you don't want to put somebody in the house that's going to tear it up. You don't want that you put everything new in there and they're breaking everything, so you have to come and fix it. And how would you know that? You have to vet people. So I want you, if you are driving or if you are, sitting at your desk, you might want to write these 3 things down for vetting a tenant because it is going to help you immensely when picking someone. It makes it go from you being in eviction court all the time to being a tired landlord to, man, I hate this, to you actually having some relief. For you actually being a landlord, and it is semi-passive. I always have to say semi-passive because you have to check in and do inspections every now and then. You have to make sure the rent is being collected on time, because if it isn't being collected, there are certain notices that you need to send. So semi-passive, right? I mean, passive enough. You're really front loading your work. So you do most of the work when you first get the property before the people even move in, so that when they do move in, it's less work on you. So what are you checking for when you are vetting your tenant? The first thing, and I'd say this is the most important thing when vetting a tenant, is to check their rental history. I always say check 5 to 10 years of rental history, and you will learn a lot about their behaviors from their past behaviors. Why do, when you go to a bank or if somebody's going to lend you some money, why do people check your credit? Because they want to see your past behaviors. They want to see what you did before to see how you're going to perform later. So when you're checking your rental history, it's this form I use. It's called a tenant verification or a landlord verification form. And the landlord verification form just asks the landlord questions that I just want to know how this person performed when they were with you. So we ask things like, how many times were they late on rent? How cooperative are these people? If you needed to get into the this is cooperation again, but if you need to get into the property, how difficult was it? Like if you needed to set an inspection, did they make it hard for you, or was that an easy task to do? If when they left this property, how did they leave it? Did they leave it in fairly good condition? Did they tear it up? And etc. So it's other things we ask too, but I would say those are probably like the big main points. You want to make sure they're paying on time, so you ask how many times were they late. If you want to make sure that they're cooperative when you need to do an inspection or anything like that, so you ask them about cooperation. And then you want to see how they kept up the property. So, and there are other questions on there, like I said, but I'd say that those are the big three. And the reason you're asking each landlord they've ever been with these questions is because you want to see what their behaviors are. We are creatures of habit. What we did before, there's a very high chance that we are going to perform in that exact manner if we move somewhere else. You will hear from the tenant, no, I'm not that anymore, or I'm going to do this, and I'm this great of a tenant. And you'll hear everything. They're giving their praises. They're saying that they're the best person in the world to move into your property. And I mean, maybe they do think so, but I need to verify that that is true. So how do I verify that that is true? I do my landlord verification form, and that allows me to be able to see how what they have done in the past. What were their past behaviors? Because I want to see how they are going to perform when they are in this property that we just renovated. So 1, landlord verification, really see past behaviors of this person that wants to move into your property. 2, you want to make sure they can afford it. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a great person. At the end of the day, the rent needs to be paid. I can't call my mortgage company and say, oh, well, we're falling on hard times this month, so we're not going to be able to pay the mortgage. I want to give you a little bit of advice. They don't care. They don't care. They want to make sure that they get their money every single month. So I want to optimize my cash flow by making sure I don't have to spend my money paying that mortgage. I want to let the tenant that is living in this property pay for that mortgage. So you have to verify income. Typically, you want the income to be 3 times what the rent is, because you want to make sure they can truly afford it. When I get people that they just make a little bit more than the rent, that's not a good fit for me. And the reason it's not a good fit is because I don't want you struggling. You paid your rent, now you can't afford to eat. You paid your rent, you can't afford to pay the electricity now. I don't want you to be in a compromising position where you like, oh, am I going to pay the lights this month, or am I going to pay the rent? I want to make sure that you truly can afford the place. And then the third thing that we like to look at is credit. You want to see, what has your history been with paying other things? Do you pay your bills, or do you not pay your bills? That's really what landlords are looking for. I know a lot of people, they'll ask, oh, well, what credit score do you want? And I think it's less about the score and more about the activities. So you want to make sure we're checking behaviors again. How does this person behave? Also, on credit, you'll see if someone got evicted. And if they got evicted and they didn't pay it off, you want to know, well, why did you get evicted? And you get more information on that. But it shows you their behaviors. If you see a lot of evictions on somebody's credit, you see that paying their rent is not important to them. So why would you pay it moving into the place that I'm offering? So you want to make sure that you're really verifying these people. And when you look into people in this way, typically you'll find someone that is going to do what they say they're going to do. They are going to take care of the place. Like everything on these checks looks good. They're going to end up taking care of the place. They're going to pay you on time and they're going to bother you minimally, which is my ideal tenant. And by doing this, a lot of the times, especially when you have a beautiful product, a lot of the times these people want to stay in your properties for a very long time. And that brings up my next point. Another way to optimize the rental cash flow that you're getting every single month is to reduce your vacancy. How can you reduce your vacancy? Now, if you've heard from other landlords, vacancy costs a lot, right? You don't want the property to be vacant because I'm responsible for paying the mortgage the months that the property doesn't have anybody in it. I don't want to be responsible for paying the mortgage. I want to find a good person to move into these properties so that burden is placed on someone else that's actually living in this property. So how do you reduce the vacancy on the properties? Now, one way to reduce the vacancy is if you give a really good quality product, you really vet people, then a lot of the times you'll get people that want to stay into your properties a long time, which is amazing because ideally that's what I want. I want people that want to stay here forever. If the next generation wants to move in, that sounds great. I want you to stay here forever because that is minimizing that's maximizing my vacancy, but it's maximizing my cash flow because I don't have any vacancy. I don't want any vacancy. I want to make sure that this place is staying rented with an ideal tenant. So that's one way. You really vet people. A lot of times when you give them a great product, they want to stay a long time. But then you get times where people want to move. So how do you minimize your vacancy when people want to move? So my suggestion would be the first time you marketed this property, you made pictures, right? You had pictures taken of the properties in pristine condition. 2 months before this person is expected to move out, it's time to start marketing for another tenant. It's time for you to start putting it out there that this property is for sale. Another way that you can minimize vacancy is give your tenant an incentive to help you find someone else, especially if they've been a really good tenant. Maybe you could offer them an incentive. If you find someone that we approve to move into this property, we'll give you $50 extra back with your security deposit as long as everything passes in the house. Or maybe you can give them some sort of incentive to just make them want to help you. I'm pretty sure you guys heard birds of a feather flock together. So if you got one good tenant, they probably know somebody else that is probably a good fit to move into your property. And then if you can find people that they are cooperative and they want to send people your way to come look at the property, you can even say, I'm giving you an incentive for me to find someone before you move out of this property. That would give them a little bit of incentive to allow you to bring people over and show the property so you can really have someone that lined up that wants to move in as soon as they leave. So that is another point in reducing vacancy. So another thing that you can do is on your lease renewals. I have some notes right here so I don't forget anything. Lease renewals. When you are doing your lease renewals, are you checking to see what the market rent is so that you make sure that you're optimizing the amount of cash flow that is coming into this property? Another way that you can do this is probably not in this environment, but if interest rates were to go down, you can refinance some of your properties just to get a lower rate and a lower payment so that you can make more cash flow. But are you analyzing every single time it's time to renew a lease to make sure that people are paying what's the market rent? Because you could be missing out on a lot of opportunity. Now, if you have a really good tenant, and let's say market rent went up $500, I would not suggest you to take your, let's just say the rent was $1,000 and now you see the rent's $1,500. You're like, rental increase $1,500. I would not advise you to do that. that is gonna probably increase your vacancy, because people are like, well, what am I paying for? This is how much it costs everywhere else to live. I might as well just move and maybe I can find a better rate of somewhere else I can move, because that's a huge increase. But if you were to increase your rent by $20, $25, maybe $50 max, I would think. That sucks, because it's like, I gotta pay extra money to still live at the same place. But I don't think the suck hurts enough for someone to want to move. And then that also gives you the opportunity to keep your rents as close to market rate as possible. One thing that I've done is when buying a property, and let's say this property came with a tenant, and I'll give you a real life example. So I bought a property with a tenant in it, and they were paying way below market rent. But upon inspection, I realized the reason why they were paying way below market rent. They were paying way below market rent because the owner hadn't fixed anything in the house in a long time. This particular house had a fire in it, and they just accepted it because they knew that they were paying below market rents. What we did is we offered to upgrade a lot of the things in their house. So upgrade the kitchen, upgrade the bathroom, do all of these maintenance concerns that they had, but also upgrading things that are going to increase the value of the property. And in return, we were going to adjust their rent to the market rate. Now, I'll be honest, when we did this, I was a bit nervous because the market rate was about $600 more than what they were paying. So I thought that this person might say, no way, I'm moving, which was still okay with me. We just renovated the house. So we could easily find someone else that would want to move into the property. But this person said, well, if we're going to upgrade this house and make it beautiful, I already love this house, I'd be willing to pay the additional money. And then their rent got adjusted to market rate. And I'd say they pay their rent every month, sometimes a little late, but that's okay. That's a free steak dinner for you because you pay a 10% late fee. It allowed us to bring that property to the true market rate and optimize the cash flow. If we wouldn't have increased it to the market rate, it wouldn't have made sense to keep the person that was living in that property because it was way below market. There was a lot of money being missed because they had not adjusted the rents in forever, it seemed like, but for good reason. They didn't come and fix anything up. The house needed significant work that needed to be done, but the person that was living there was okay with paying a little bit more and they could afford it, because now they actually had a house they could be proud of. They had a house that they had already been making memories of, but it needed a significant amount of work. And now it was looking more like the 2020s instead of it looking like 1980 in there. So we talked about lease renewals. And then also, when you are fixing up these properties, you are fixing them up so no maintenance in 5 years. If it lasts longer than 5 years, that's great, but you have to make sure that you are maintaining these properties. So how do you make sure that you're maintaining the properties? You set up yearly inspections. See how things are going. When things start breaking, you're proactive about it. For instance, if you're doing an inspection, you see a leak in one of the pipes. You don't wait until the pipe falls off and now you're going to fix it. You fix it when you see the leak. You're proactive about it. And having those yearly inspections really help you be proactive about it. And what I've noticed is that you optimize your cash flow when you're proactive about things, because it typically costs less to do things on the term that I want to do them, until, as opposed to having to do them in an emergency and having to do them right this second because I need somebody to come on call, and now they're charging me time and a half to come and fix this problem that's an emergency that has to be taken care of immediately. It's a lot cheaper to do it beforehand. So be proactive. So that's back on the proactive note. And then I'd say the last thing that I could think of how to add additional value when you are optimizing your cash flow is to add different things to the house that can increase the rent. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. So one example of something that you can do to help increase the rent is, okay, so this house has a washer and dryer hookup. We'd be okay with letting you rent this washer and dryer in addition to, the house, but it's an upcharge on that. So it's going to be about $50 extra a month, but you'll have the washer and dryer in the house. Some people will take you up on that. They'll say, oh, that's not that bad. I'll do that. Another way that I found has worked really well for me is charging people pet rent. When you charge people pet rent, usually people love their animals. They always want a place where they can bring their animals. They're very fulfilling to their lives. And I want to make sure people have a very, I don't want to say a fun time, but I want to make sure that they make this place feel like their home. So their pets are a part of them making this place feel like home. So the only thing that we ask in addition is if you do have a pet, we charge a pet rent. Usually it's about $50 a pet. So if they have more pets, you can get additional $100, $150 or whatever on top of the rent. So that's another way to help you optimize cash flow when building on your rental portfolio. So I feel like we touched on a lot of points today. We touched on making sure that you're proactive and with like maintenance and picking people to move into your properties. We talked about making sure that you have everything at the market rate of how much it costs to live a place, adding different add-ons like pet rent and things like that to make it so that you can charge more for your rent, which is really helpful in optimizing your cash flow. Doing inspections so you can be proactive as well in that way to make sure that you catch something before it gets too bad. Because I do want to make this point. Like let's say you did have a leak in one of your pipes, right? If you catch it up front, you probably only have to fix the leak. If you catch it a while down the road, you got some mold, you probably need to change the cabinet, you got to do some mold remediation. Like it turns into a huge problem. So by being proactive and nipping it in the bud, that makes it so that you don't have that huge problem anymore. If you have another way to optimize your cash flow with your rental portfolio, I want you to drop it in the comments. Drop it in the comments to let people know how you are optimizing your cash flow. One thing I need to give you guys something good, a good resource. Would help me become a better rental property investor. The best advice I can give you to help you become a better rental property investor is to find out information from the people that came before you. So if you know someone and let's say you've been in eviction court all the time and they're never in eviction court, might be a good idea to take them to lunch. It might be a good idea to take them to lunch to see what they're doing differently, so that you can implement that into your business. Also, I want to present the offer. If you really want to buy your first rental property and you just need a little bit more hand-holding, I want to give you 2 opportunities that can help you. The first opportunity is I have a totally free buy and hold community on Facebook. It's called The Freedom Inc. All I ask is for you to answer 4 questions and I will let you in that group. In that group, on Tuesday nights, I do a case study. And basically the case study is me showing you how to do a rental property deal. I show you how to get the deal. I show you how you got the money. And I think what's special about this is that you don't have to put any of your own money into these deals. I show you how to buy and keep properties with $0 out of your pocket. So if that's interesting to you, I want to invite you to join the group. I'm going to put the link in the show notes if you want to just click a link and go straight to the group. But the name of the group is called The Freedom Inc. It's on Facebook. Answer the 4 questions. I'll let you in for free. If you feel like you need more help, you need more hand holding, you want to make sure that you're doing this correctly, you want to make sure that you minimize the amount of mistakes that you make, I want to invite you to schedule a 15-minute strategy session. The 15-minute strategy session, we're going to talk about if you would be a good fit for the fam. You're going to share your goals with me. What are you trying to do? Because I want to make sure that this is something that would actually benefit you. I'm not here to sell people to join a program that's not going to actually benefit you. If you come and you talking to me and you're saying, I'm not really interested in buying rental properties, I want to lend money, the 15-minute strategy session probably isn't for you. I'm going to talk about how we can help you get to your goals in buying your first rental property. If that's what you want to do, I want to encourage you to schedule that. And if you're seeing this live, you could just DM me. But if you aren't seeing this live, there's going to be a link in this show notes where you can just click it and schedule that 15-minute strategy session. And we can see how we can help you go from being someone that wants to be a rental property investor to being a landlord. I want to say thank you guys for tuning into the podcast today. It was truly a pleasure to be able to talk to you and give you some helpful tips to optimize your cash flow. But until next time, Do It Movement listeners, see ya!
Thank you for tuning into our show. If you need more hand-holding on your rental property investor journey, book a 15-minute strategy session with Martine. We can see if you're a fit for the Freedom Inc. fam, link in the show notes. Also be sure to join the free Freedom Inc. Facebook group, where each week Martine goes over a real-life rental property investor deal and shows you how the deal was found, how to get the money, and how to make a cash flow and much more. If you'd like to connect with Lori, be sure to email her at vitalizeproperties@live.com. Until next time, see you.